Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Are we rolling? Yes, we're rolling. Action. Good day to you. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Another day and yet another audio mic setup. I heard some weirdness with the mic I tried to use in the last video. It sounded like I was in a high school indoor basketball arena, gymnasium. I don't know how it comes out after compression onto YouTube, but here in my little production area, it sounded pretty shockingly bad for the quality of the microphone and just my amateur ability of setting it up. It's more of one of those mics you have to be right up on top of when you're talking. Probably good for radio broadcasts in a sound acoustically friendly room, but not here in my humble little Butsudan room. So back to the engineering mic with what they call a dead cat. Sorry, cats. But something to stop the popping and the T's and all of that. So hopefully this will sound good. Whatever I can do to ameliorate it in post-production, I'm still a novice at that as well. So, with all of that blah, 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 let us continue with the object of devotion for observing the mind. Question. During the 2,000 years of the former and middle day of the law, the four ranks of bodhisattvas and the teachers constructed images of and built temples and pagodas for Buddhas of other worlds, or for the Shakyamuni Buddha of Hinayana, of provisional Mahayana, of the pre-Lotus Sutra teachings, or of the theoretical teaching of the sutra. No one in India, China, or Japan, however, neither rulers nor subjects, revered the object of devotion of the lifespan chapter of the essential teaching and the four great bodhisattvas. Good point. Though I think I generally understand what you're saying, I have never heard such a thing before, and therefore it startles my ears and perplexes my mind. Will you explain it to me again in greater detail? Okay, nuts and bolts. So, as I'm sure you're aware, we're dealing with historical scholarship here. So it's not insignificant that Nichiren brings this about for all of us to understand that, if you go through all of Asia, Eurasia, but all over the Asian continents, from India to Korea and Japan and Philippines and all of that, you will find, and there are many in Vietnam, I don't mean to leave anyone out, but you'll find all kinds and all manner of buildings and sculptures and edifice to various stages of Buddhist practice. And what he's saying is, now that we have the ultimate teaching in our hands, that is the absolute efficacy of experiencing our Buddha nature in this life right now, something that wasn't taught in any of the earlier teachings, the immediacy of it, the fact that we contain it, the fact of the 3,000 realms, the 10 worlds within the 10 worlds, all containing Buddhahood, creating 100 worlds, and the 10 factors, and so on. Now, all of those edifices and paintings, pictures, all of it, are really they're really irrelevant, only as historical monuments, do they have any meaning? They don't have any meaning to our immediate experience of Buddhahood. So to have those things around, they may be nice reminders of being mindful and the teachings that we follow, but they are not the object of devotion for observing the mind. So using them as a focal point to our practice is utterly useless. So you have to understand why he's addressing this, because that too is quite a shock to the system for the cultural evolution of people throughout Asia who've, you see it in every Chinese restaurant you go into, right? There's a little prosperity Buddha sitting above the door. It's very inculcated into the cultures. And they're nice novelties, but they're not to be revered in any way. So, this is what Nichiren's talking about, and he's about to explain why that's so. Answer. All the teachings that Shakyamuni Buddha expounded during his lifetime, all the 8 volumes and 28 chapters of the Lotus Sutra, the first 4 flavors of teachings that preceded the sutra, and the Nirvana Sutra that came after the Lotus, make an unbroken series of teachings like one perfect sutra. These teachings can be divided into 3 parts: preparation, revelation, and transmission. Preparation indicates the part from the Flower Garland Sutra, his first preaching at the place of enlightenment, the Kigan or the Avatamsaka, the different names, different languages. To the Wisdom Sutras, revelation indicates, to the Wisdom Sutra, so that's the preparatory teachings. Revelation indicates the 10 volumes of the Immeasurable Meaning Sutra. That's the opening to the Lotus. The Lotus Sutra and the Universal Worthy Sutra. And transmission indicates the Nirvana Sutra. The 10 volumes of the Revelation section, likewise, can be divided into these 3 parts: the Immeasurable Meaning Sutra and the Introduction chapter of the Lotus Sutra are preparation. The 15.5 chapters from the Expedient Means chapter to the 19-line verse of the Distinctions and Benefits chapter are revelation. The remaining 11.5 chapters and the 1 volume from the section in the Distinctions and Benefits chapter clarifying the 4 stages of resolute mind and conviction for people in the Buddha's lifetime to the Universal Worthy Sutra, the closing sutra of the Lotus, are transmission. Does this make sense? The 10 volumes of the Immeasurable Meaning Sutra, the Lotus Sutra, and the Universal Worthy Sutra can also be divided into 2 parts: the theoretical and the essential. Each part has the 3 divisions. In the theoretical teaching, preparation comprises the Immeasurable Meanings Sutra and the Introduction chapter of the Lotus Sutra. Revelation comprises 8 chapters from Expedient Means through the Prophecies chapters, and the transmission comprises the 5 chapters from the Teacher of the Law to the Peaceful Practices. The Buddha of the theoretical teaching declared that he first attained Buddhahood in this life. He revealed the 100 worlds and 1,000 factors inherent in life, but he did not expound their eternal nature, or their constantly existing nature. Since the theoretical teaching of the Lotus Sutra thus directly reveals a part of the Buddha's own enlightenment, it excels all other sutras that the Buddha had preached, now preached, or would preach, and is the correct teaching that is difficult to believe and difficult to understand. In a way, you can say he's gone full circle. In his first teaching, the Kigan Sutra, the Avatamsaka Sutra, often called the Flower Garland Sutra. Well, what flower was he talking about? Well, he was talking about what it was to experience awakening and enlightenment. If you read that sutra, you'll see it's full of wonderfully colorful examinations of what it is to experience enlightenment. But he didn't reveal how to get there. So he only taught that for a couple of weeks. There's varying estimates, a couple of weeks, 5 weeks, but very short period of time. And there are accounts, and if you read enough of the history, you can imagine that people were looking at him like, wow, that's great, Shakyamuni, but how do I do it? So right away he backed off, and he came up with teaching sermons that would take people through the evolution he had been through. He went through 6 or 7 years of all kinds of practices and austerities, and he was trying everything. He was desperate to find this answer, this universal answer. And when it finally came to him, all he wanted to do was tell people about it, right? But he quickly realized, enlightened as he had become, that this wasn't really helping anyone unless he could show them how the road to get there, without having to go through all of the various practices he did, but encapsulating those practices in the lessons that he learned from them. So he started to teach, or preach, as it says here, the method for getting there, what it looks like, how your brain works. First of all, let's get your brain and your body tied together. So a lot of the first sermons were about thinking about how you and your body are united through your mind, and how you experience the world, therefore, comes through that perceptive vessel, if you will. So although the prize was always there from the beginning, the method of teaching had to change. And this is where we get into the 5 periods of teaching, right? So where we are now with Nichiren is observing that ultimately, in the final years of his teachings, he was saying, okay, now you understand how your mind works, your brain works, your body works, your relationship with the world, your relationship with your environments, and your own selfhood. Now that we've dissected all of that, now you can use all of that knowledge to quickly understand, assimilate, and connect with your Buddha nature, which, by the way, has been there all along. Just like me. I've been telling you I first attained Buddhahood in this life. That you can witness that. People saw that, physically saw it. So you can't deny that. But what you have to understand is what I achieved, Buddhahood, is not uniquely mine. It has always been here as long as the life process exists, and therefore accessible to everything within the life process, including you and me. You just need a tool, an efficacy to get to it without having to go through the 6 or 7 years of practices I did. Just learn what I learned from it, and now apply that through Myoho Renge Kyo. Here it is. Just do it, in other words. So, I don't know why it is, other than our samsaric obstacle, that even though we have this amazing facility for capacity, perhaps I'll say, to understand things, to perceive things, that we're so enamored of hanging on to the no pain, no gain thinking, that if it isn't impossible to achieve in this lifetime, then it must not be worth doing. it's I I don't know how that started, and that's not even the subject of Buddhism. Shakyamuni just sets that question aside and says, "Look, just do this. You don't need to think about all of that. Just do this. All of that's a distraction. It's the samsaric distraction. So avoid it altogether. Just don't pay attention to it. Do this." And so, Nichiren is observing that people are having a hard time with that, right? So, to continue, the relationship between Shakyamuni Buddha and his disciples, his students, can be traced back to the time when, as the 16th son of the Buddha, great universal wisdom excellence, he planted the seeds of Buddhahood in their lives. In Shakyamuni's present lifetime, a few of these disciples discovered the seeds when they heard the Flower Garland Sutra and the other teachings of the first four flavors. This was not, however, the Buddha's true intention. Their discovery through these teachings was like poison having a positive effect. Ordinary people and the persons of the two vehicles came to the Lotus Sutra gradually through the first four flavors of teachings. They then revealed the seeds of Buddhahood from within themselves and were able to obtain the fruit of enlightenment. So basically what he's saying is some people, are what we would say today gifted, or simply would realize their innate Buddhahood early on without fully understanding it. And so they would think that they understood, the Buddhist method. They were just fortunately able to awaken easily. It's very rare. It doesn't happen often. For most of us, it takes some practice, some learning, right? And so those who he's talking about now, who were in worlds of learning and realization, right? The two vehicles, not two vehicles, what did he say? Yeah, he did say that. Persons of the two vehicles. They came to the Lotus Sutra. They had a lot of aha moments, and they were able to understand the meaning or the depth of what awakening represents. But they still weren't able to access it easily, or for that matter, to teach it to anyone else. And this was the big hurdle, was that when you attain enlightenment, awakening, you have those aha moments for yourself. That's all well and good, but it's not complete. It's not complete because you haven't challenged your complete 3,000 realms, as it were, your Ichinen Sanzen, your complete, what is the complete, I don't want to say vehicle, but I'll use it in this case, vehicle of selfhood. What makes you perceive your identity? You, if you've understood what I've talked about in the past, you perceive your identity through a filtered quantity of those forces that instantiate you, manifest you, make you who you are, as you might say. But you aren't aware of all of the innumerable stuff that makes that consciousness a construct of self. I don't know, I may be confusing that for you. If you go to a beach, see all that sand, and you make it, I used to live in California, people personalize their chunks of beach. People like Laguna, people like Huntington Beach, people like different areas of beach. They know that beach, and that's their beach. In other words, their selfhood. But what they fail to realize is that that beach doesn't stand alone as beaches. It is a construct of the ocean all over the world, all over the globe, sands of every area of the world. We separate the names of oceans because of their locale, but in truth, there's only one ocean. It just is on different sides of continents. It surrounds all of us. So we give part of it the name Atlantic and part of it the name Pacific, but there's really one ocean. Get it? So when you come to realize in the earlier teachings the constructs of your beach, again, that's all well and good, and you've done great, but you haven't reached complete enlightenment. You haven't really reached your full Buddha-ness, because you're not taking into account all of those other beaches, which is, again, one beach. So this is the stumbling block. And in order to really perceive all of those beaches, what do you have to do? You have to travel, don't you? You have to go to these other places. You have to assimilate that experience. And that is bodhisattva work. That is talking. That is sangha. That is us talking to one another about our beaches and the way we perceive beaches and from our vantage point. And when we do that, we shake up, others shake up what we think of as beaches. That is bodhisattva work. Then when you come to that Buddha-ness of clarity, it is that's where you hear the word complete enlightenment. All-inclusive, all-knowing. That's the Buddhahood we want, right? All right. Sorry for the interruption. Among the human and heavenly beings who listened to the 8 chapters for the first time in Shakyamuni's days, some took the seeds into their lives by hearing just a single phrase or verse. Some nurtured and harvested the seeds they had received. Others brought these seeds to fruition when they came to the Universal Worthy and Nirvana Sutras. Still others appeared in the former, middle, or latter day of the law, and through the Hinayana and provisional Mahayana teachings, obtained the fruit of enlightenment of the Lotus Sutra. These last are like the disciples of Shakyamuni's lifetime, who discovered their seeds of Buddhahood through the first 4 flavors of teachings. Preparation, revelation, and transmission also exist in the 14 chapters of the essential teaching of the Lotus Sutra. The first half of the Emerging from the Earth chapter is preparation. The latter half of this chapter, the Lifespan chapter, and the first half of the following Distinctions and Benefits chapter, 1 chapter and 2 halves, are revelation. The remainder is transmission. The Buddha of the essential teaching, now you see why Nichiren focuses a lot of his attention on the Lifespan chapter, because it is around that chapter, some of the chapter before it and the chapters after it, that Myoho Renge Kyo comes into clear view. And then the rest of the Lotus Sutra is about transmitting that enlightenment, that tool, that method. The Buddha of the essential teaching denies that he first attained Buddhahood in this life, because Buddhahood does not belong to Buddha, a moniker put on Shakyamuni, great saint of Shaka clan. The difference between the theoretical and essential teachings is as great as that between heaven and earth. The latter reveals the entirety of the 10 worlds and further the realm of the environment. Remember what I was saying about beaches? The theoretical teaching, the first 4 flavors of teachings, the Innumerable Meaning Sutra, and the Nirvana Sutra were all preached according to the capacities of the people. All these teachings that fall into the three categories of preaching are therefore easy to believe and easy to understand, because you can relate to them like a beach. In contrast, the essential teaching, which transcends the three categories, is difficult to believe and difficult to understand. This is my personal beach, my construct of a beach. For it directly reveals the Buddha's own enlightenment. Oh. Nevertheless, even the difference between the doctrine of the 3,000 realms in a single moment of life, of the theoretical teaching, and that of the essential teaching pales into insignificance before the ultimate teaching contained in the depths of the lifespan chapter. There it is again. Because he's saying Buddhahood is not unique to me, Shakyamuni. It is inherent in all the processes of life. The essential teaching contained in the depths of the lifespan chapter also has its preparation, revelation, and transmission. Shakyamuni Buddha preached the Lotus Sutra in the past as the 16th son of Buddha, great universal wisdom excellence. When he appeared in his present life in India, he also preached teachings for some 50 years, from the Avatamsaka Sutra to the 14 chapters of the theoretical teaching of the Lotus Sutra and the Nirvana Sutra. All these sutras, as well as the countless sutras of the Buddhas of the 10 directions and the 3 existences, all those expedient means, are preparation for revealing the heart of the lifespan chapter. So that's the drop the mic moment, right? The lifespan chapter. When Buddha says, okay, now you guys have learned all of this, but now what you've learned isn't about me. It isn't about Buddha, me, Buddha. It is about Buddhahood, which, by the way, all of you possess. It's not unique to me. Mind blown. All the teachings, other than the 1 chapter and 2 halves, are Hinayana in nature and erroneous. So now he's using the word Hinayana, smaller vehicle, as not just to a particular area or sects or early teachings. He's saying all the teachings outside of the lifespan chapter in the Lotus Sutra, the essential teachings of the Lotus, are, he's saying, insignificant. What he's saying is they're not the one method, the one true universal method for awakening your Buddha nature. They're all, in a sense, preparatory. Though they may have divisions and superiorities between themselves, they are not the ultimate teaching. All of them. Not only do they fail to lead to enlightenment, but they also lack the truth. Those who believe in them are meager in virtue, heavy with defilement, ignorant, poor, solitary, and like birds and beasts that do not know their own parents. So he's making a really strong statement here to those who would question why this is the ultimate teaching. The first half of the Lotus Sutra and the sutras preceding it contain the perfect teaching, but even this is not the cause for Buddhahood. See, to know the thing is not to be the thing. Much less so are the teachings of a Hinayana nature, such as the Mahavarachana Sutra. It is out of the question to think that the scholars and teachers of the 7 schools, including the Flower Garland and the True Word, preach the cause for attaining Buddhahood. They just preach about it. These inferior sutras seem to fall within the Tripitaka, connecting and specific teachings, but actually they are no better than the lowest 2. They may maintain that their doctrines are incomparably profound, but nowhere do they clarify when the Buddha planted the seeds of Buddhahood or when he nurtured and reaped them. These doctrines are no different from Hinayana, which demands that one reduce one's body to ashes and annihilate one's consciousness, for they do not reveal when the Buddha started teaching and when he finished. And that's a little bit of a shout out to the Medicine King chapter that many sects of Buddhism has still to this day will burn themselves alive, and you can see more on that on a video I put up on the site called The Burning Monk. It's tragic, actually, but totally counters what you've heard me say before, is that Buddhahood is something you can only experience while you're in this life. Buddhism is a way of living life to its absolute ultimate potential. Annihilating it doesn't achieve that. It's the opposite of that. If a consort of a king were to conceive by a beast, her baby would be inferior to Achanandala. Setting aside these lesser teachings, the 8 chapters of the Revelation section, the 2nd through the 9th chapters of the theoretical teaching, seem to have been expounded for the sake of the persons of the 2 vehicles rather than for ordinary people and bodhisattvas in Shakyamuni's lifetime. From a more profound viewpoint, they are intended for the ordinary people after the Buddha's passing, in the former, middle, and latter days of the law, and in particular for the ordinary people in the beginning of the latter day. So now we're going to move on to another question. I'm going to check my time. Yeah, we've got some time. If you don't mind, take a little sip of my coffee here. It reminds me of a Sanka commercial. That probably won't mean much to most of you. Question: on what authority do you say so? He's not shy about asking himself questions, is he? Answer: the teacher of the law chapter of the Lotus Sutra states, quote, "Since hatred and jealousy toward this sutra abound, even when the thus come one is in this world, how much more will it be so after his passing?" End quote. So why does he bring this up now, right? The Treasure Tower chapter states, quote, "They, the Buddhas, make certain that the law will long endure. The thus come one many treasures, I myself, and these emanation Buddhas who have gathered here, surely know this is our aim." End quote. Look at what the encouraging devotion and peaceful practices chapters state about the future. The theoretical teaching was preached for the people after Shakyamuni Buddha's passing. As regards the essential teaching, it was addressed exclusively to the people early in the latter day of the law. On the surface, the Buddha seems to have preached this teaching for the enlightenment of the people of his day. He planted the seeds of Buddhahood in their lives in the remote past, numberless major world system dust particle kalpas ago, and nurtured the seeds through his preaching as the 16th son of the Buddha, great universal wisdom, excellence, major world system dust particle kalpas ago. And through the first 4 flavors of teachings and the theoretical teaching in this life. Then, with the essential teaching, he brought his followers to the stage of near perfect enlightenment, and finally to that of perfect enlightenment. Again, complete or perfect enlightenment. In actuality, though, the essential teaching bears no resemblance whatsoever to the theoretical teaching. The preparation, revelation, and transmission of the essential teachings are intended entirely for the beginning of the latter day of the law. The essential teaching of Shakyamuni's lifetime and that revealed at the beginning of the latter day are both pure and perfect, in that both lead directly to Buddhahood. Shakyamuni's, however, is the Buddhism of harvest, and this is the Buddhism of sowing. The core of his teaching is 1 chapter and 2 halves, and the core of mine is the 5 characters of the Daimoku alone. So he's establishing the lineage of his teaching in the 13th century. He's essentially saying that there were 5 periods of teachings. They were broken into different lessons, different preparations for the people of his lifetime to prepare them for the realization that Buddhahood for them, for everyone, for all life processes is at hand. That it surrounds you, that you're already in it, you just need to wake up to it. They weren't ready to hear that at first. And they weren't ready to hear that in his lifetime. So what Nichiren is saying here is that he taught the entire spectrum of how to understand, how to get there, how to understand the mind and the way that it works, how to then penetrate that mind, how to get past that mind so that you could access fundamentally the creator within you, if you will, that which makes all things perceivable, the life process itself. And he knew in his lifetime there would be very few who would get it, who could access their Buddhahood fully, completely. And over time, people's capacity naturally grew, naturally expanded. For some, not so much. For others, more. But as societies grow, as you know, you could point to industrialization and how that maybe took place fundamentally in certain countries, but the spread of what that's created, like dropping a pebble in water, went to other countries and cultures that weren't industrialized, that still aren't industrialized, but they still reap not only the benefits, but the what's the opposite of benefits? The burdens, if you will, of what that industrialization has wrought. But certainly, you would have to say that on the whole, human beings have evolved. Our understanding of the world around us has evolved. Our capacity to learn has evolved. Our capacity to know ourselves has evolved. And so Shakyamuni knew that one day humans would evolve to the capacity in the cultures and the time that they would get the essential teachings, and that this teaching would then spread easily because more people would have the capacity to understand it. So Nichiren is positioning himself as the one who now, from the 13th century on, will encapsulate this essential teaching for what it is, what Shakyamuni has been saying all along, as Myoho Renge Kyo. Here it is. Just see your Buddha nature. Here, I'll give you a tool, the entire history of what the Lotus Sutra represents, so that you can focus on it, the Dharma, the teachings. The Dharma, it gets often translated as teaching, but it's actually the experience of. And the teaching is just our human verbalization of what that looks like, feels like, and how to attain it. But you can't attain it through those words. You can only attain it by your determination to experience it. That's the Dharma. And the Dharma is what? Buddhahood, perfect enlightenment, your realization of it. And that's your realization of it, not mine, not Shakyamuni's. We can understand that in the latter day, today, in our modern minds. That was very, very difficult to accept, let alone understand, for people of 2,000-3,000 years ago, or 1,000 years ago, or 100 years ago, or even today. So what Nichiren has done is he's encapsulated Shakyamuni's tool, his method, and given it samsaric expression, if you will, so that we can experience our Buddha nature immediately, profoundly. So Nichiren is no slouch when it comes to the bodhisattvas of the Dharma, the Buddhist teachings. Oops, sorry. So, of course, another question. Do we have time? This next question is, on what authority do you say that? That the essential teaching is meant for the generations of the latter day of the law? And the answer starts with the emerging from the earth chapter. So you can probably guess where this goes. But I'm going to save that for the next video, because I don't want to talk your ear off and give you so much information that I want you to chew on every one of these videos. Chant about it. See what aha moments you can get for yourselves. I get some comments from some of you where you relate to what you hear in a video, and you'll bring up other teachings and so forth. That's what this meant, and that's where this comes from, and then you'll ask me a question about that, and it's very exciting. That is the proof of our sangha, our constant nearing proximity to our Buddha nature. So I encourage you to do that. That's why I don't want to inundate you with 4-hour discourses. If I had somebody to interlocute with, that might be watchable. But it's hard for me to go past an hour when I watch things, even if they really engage me. So I'm trying to honor your time and your capacity for reinventing those things that I say as we read through this stuff, so that you can come to your own insights and share them. Share them with me and with others on this channel and our Sangha. And for that, I appreciate immensely the time that you take to do this. Please use it. Take it to Gohanzan. Strengthen your practice every day. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Thank you so much. And we'll see you in the next one, okay?